The diplomatic vessel Harmony's edge shook violently as it suddenly appeared near the dangerous quarantine zone. Captain Thelanara squinted her 4 eyes at the emergency signal flashing on her computer screen. The bright red light kept blinking, demanding attention. "The signal is coming from the research station on planet Kepler 44b," said Lieutenant Voss. His reptilian fingers moved quickly across the control panel, checking different readings and trying to understand what was happening down on the planet's surface. A crackling voice came through the ship's communication system. It was human, tired, and desperate. "This is Dr. Jake Miller, calling for immediate help. I need medical evacuation right now. I have someone with me who is badly hurt and needs treatment fast." Captain Thelanara felt confused. The research station was supposed to be empty. All humans had been ordered to leave that planet months ago because it was too dangerous. What was this human doing there? And who was this injured companion he mentioned? "Prepare the shuttle," she ordered her crew, "but stay alert. Something doesn't feel right about this situation." 20 minutes later, the shuttle returned to the main ship. The crew members who had gone down to rescue the human looked pale and frightened. They kept whispering to each other in worried voices as they guided the shuttle into the landing bay. When the heavy metal doors of the shuttle bay slowly opened, the entire alien crew gathered to see what was happening. What they saw made them freeze in complete terror. Their hearts stopped beating for a moment. Dr. Jake Miller stumbled out of the shuttle. His clothes were torn and covered in blood. His face was dirty and showed deep exhaustion from days without proper sleep. His hands were cut and bandaged roughly, but none of that scared the alien crew. What terrified them was what Miller was carefully dragging behind him. It was a razor-claw stalker, not just any razor-claw stalker, but a massive one. The creature was unconscious, but even while sleeping, it looked deadly. Its body stretched 12 feet long, covered in thick, dark armor that looked like it could stop laser blasts. Sharp claws, each the size of dinner knives, extended from its powerful limbs. Its head was enormous, with a mouth full of teeth that could bite through steel. These creatures were legends of terror across 3 different star systems. Stories were told about entire colonies being destroyed by just one razor-claw stalker. Space travelers would change their routes just to avoid planets where these beasts lived. Military forces had tried for years to hunt them down, but most soldiers never returned from such missions. "Human, have you completely lost your mind?" Captain Thelanara's voice shook as her translator tried to process her shock and fear. "That monster has killed thousands of innocent people. It has destroyed whole cities." The other crew members stepped backward, reaching for their weapons. Lieutenant Voss pulled out his plasma gun, his scaled hands trembling. Security officers surrounded the area, ready to shoot at the first sign of movement from the creature. Dr. Miller looked up at them with tired but determined eyes. Sweat dripped from his forehead, mixing with the dirt and blood on his face. He was breathing heavily, clearly exhausted from whatever had happened on the planet below. "His name is Titan," Miller said in a quiet but firm voice. "And he's dying. Please, I'm begging you. I need access to your medical bay right now. Every minute we waste brings him closer to death." The alien crew couldn't believe what they were hearing. This human was talking about the galaxy's most feared predator like it was a sick pet. He spoke with genuine care and worry in his voice, the same tone someone might use when talking about a beloved family member. Even more shocking was what happened next. Miller reached down and gently placed his hand on the massive creature's armored head. He stroked it softly, like someone comforting a sleeping child. His touch was gentle and loving, showing no fear whatsoever. The crew members looked at each other with wide eyes, completely unable to understand what they were seeing. This went against everything they knew about humans and razor-claw stalkers. Everyone in the galaxy knew that these 2 species were natural enemies. "This is madness," whispered the ship's medical officer. "That human must be sick or infected with some kind of mind-controlling parasite. But Dr. Miller continued stroking the beast's head, whispering quiet words of comfort that none of them could hear clearly. And somehow, even unconscious, the deadly razor-claw stalker seemed to relax under the human's gentle touch. Dr. Emily Watson pressed her face against the thick, reinforced glass window that separated her from the medical bay. She had been watching for hours, completely fascinated and terrified by what she was seeing inside. As the ship's expert on alien life forms, she thought she understood most creatures in the galaxy. But what was happening in that room made no sense at all. For 3 straight days, Dr. Jake Miller had barely moved from beside the enormous razor-claw stalker. The human looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes, and his hair messy from lack of sleep. His clothes were wrinkled and stained, showing he hadn't even taken time to change or clean himself properly. The medical bay was filled with the steady beeping of monitoring equipment. Tubes and wires connected to the massive creature tracked its heartbeat, breathing, and brain activity. The beast lay motionless on the largest medical table the ship had, its 12-foot body taking up almost the entire space. "This is completely insane," whispered Chief Medical Officer Zefter, as he joined Watson at the viewing window. His 6 tentacles moved nervously as he spoke. "I've been a doctor for 40 years, and I've never seen anything like this. That human has clearly been infected by some kind of brain parasite or mind-controlling organism." Zefter pulled up his medical scanner and pointed it toward Miller through the glass. "Look at these readings. His brain activity is all wrong. No normal healthy being would spend days caring for a creature that could kill them in seconds." Inside the medical bay, Miller moved around the razor-claw stalker with practiced care. Every hour, exactly on schedule, he would check different monitoring devices. He would look at the creature's temperature, heart rate, and breathing patterns. He wrote down numbers on a datapad, comparing them to previous readings, but it wasn't just the medical care that confused the alien crew. It was how Miller talked to the unconscious beast. "How are you feeling today, Titan?" Miller would say in a soft, gentle voice. "I know you're hurting, but you're getting stronger. The infection in your leg is looking much better." The human would place his hand on the creature's massive head and speak to it like it was an old friend. He told it about his day, explained what medicines he was giving it, and even shared stories about his life back on Earth. Watson activated the audio feed to hear what Miller was saying. "I had a dog when I was a kid," Miller was telling the unconscious predator. "His name was Buddy, and he got sick just like you. Everyone said we should put him down, but I refused to give up on him. He lived 5 more years after that." "See?" Zefter pointed at his scanner. "Clear signs of mental illness. He thinks that killing machine is some kind of pet." When Miller wasn't directly treating the razor-claw stalker, he spent time researching everything he could about the species. He pulled up files on the ship's computer system, reading for hours about their biology, diet, and behavior patterns. He studied videos of razor-claw stalkers in the wild, taking notes and making calculations. Watson watched him prepare special food mixtures based on his research. He would blend different proteins and nutrients, testing the combinations to make sure they would be easy for the injured creature to digest when it woke up. "Look at this security footage," Watson said, pulling up recordings from the night shift. "This is what he's been doing while we sleep." The footage showed Miller dragging a blanket and pillow into the medical bay. He set up a small sleeping area right next to the containment field that surrounded the razor-claw stalker. The energy barrier was the only thing separating him from the deadly predator. "He's sleeping right there," Watson pointed at the screen, less than 3 feet away from a creature that could tear him apart. Security Chief Grondar joined them at the viewing window. His massive frame filled the doorway as he carried his favorite plasma rifle. The weapon was fully charged and ready to fire at the first sign of trouble. "I've been watching him for 3 days straight," Grondar said in his deep, rumbling voice. "That human never shows any fear. He acts like that monster is his best friend, instead of the galaxy's most dangerous predator. The security chief adjusted his weapon and checked its power settings. When that thing wakes up, and it will wake up soon according to the medical readings, I'll be ready. One shot to the head should be enough to stop it before it can hurt anyone, but Miller seemed completely unaware of the danger everyone else could see so clearly. He continued his constant care of the creature, checking its bandages, adjusting its medication, and talking to it in those same gentle, loving tones. That human is going to get us all killed? Groundar muttered, tightening his grip on his weapon, and he doesn't even seem to care. The ship's emergency alarms suddenly screamed through every corridor, their piercing sound echoing off the metal walls. Red warning lights flashed in the medical bay as all the monitoring equipment started beeping frantically. The numbers on the screens were jumping wildly, showing that something major was happening with the Razorclaw stalker. Dr. Emily Watson rushed to her control panel, her hands shaking as she read the vital signs. His brain activity is spiking rapidly, she called out to the others. Heart rate is increasing. He's waking up. Security Chief Groundar burst through the medical bay doors with his plasma rifle already aimed and ready to fire. Behind him, 6 more security officers spread out in formation, their weapons powered up and glowing with deadly energy. Every person on the ship knew this moment would come, but they had all hoped it would never arrive. Captain Thelanara's voice crackled through the communication system from the bridge. All crew members stay back from the medical bay. Prepare for emergency containment procedures. That creature must not be allowed to escape. Inside the medical bay, Dr. Jake Miller stood calmly next to the massive creature, completely ignoring the chaos around him. He was adjusting the drip that had been feeding medicine into Titan's bloodstream for the past 3 days. His movements were slow and peaceful, like nothing dangerous was happening at all. Then it happened. Titan's enormous yellow eyes snapped open. The eyes were the size of dinner plates, glowing with an inner light that seemed almost supernatural. They were the eyes of a perfect predator, designed by millions of years of evolution to hunt and kill. Every person watching through the viewing window felt their hearts stop beating for a moment. The entire crew held their breath, fingers tightened on weapon triggers. Everyone waited for the explosion of violence they knew was coming. This was the moment the Razorclaw stalker would show its true nature and try to kill everything around it. Titan's massive head slowly turned toward Miller. The movement was careful and deliberate, like a giant machine coming to life. The creature's neck muscles rippled under its armored skin as it focused its deadly gaze on the human standing just a few feet away. A low rumbling sound began deep in Titan's chest. The sound was so deep and powerful that it vibrated through the ship's metal floors and walls. Everyone could feel it in their bones, like standing next to a powerful engine. "Here it comes," whispered Security Chief Groundar, taking careful aim at the creature's head. "Everyone get ready." But Miller didn't run or show any fear. Instead, he looked directly into those massive yellow eyes and spoke in the same gentle voice he had been using for 3 days. "Easy, boy," Miller said softly, like he was talking to a nervous pet. "You're safe now. Nobody is going to hurt you here." What happened next shocked everyone watching. Miller reached his hand through the energy barrier that was supposed to protect him from the dangerous predator. He moved slowly and carefully, extending his fingers toward the creature's enormous head. The security officers tensed, ready to fire their weapons the instant the Razorclaw stalker attacked. Dr. Watson covered her eyes, unable to watch what she was sure would be Miller's horrible death. But instead of biting or clawing, Titan did something that made everyone question everything they thought they knew about these creatures. The rumbling sound continued, but now it had a different quality. Dr. Watson's translator equipment was picking up something strange from the creature's vocalizations. The computer was analyzing the sound frequencies and emotional patterns. "Wait," Watson said, staring at her readings in complete disbelief. The translator is detecting emotional content in those sounds. It's not showing anger or hunger or aggression. She adjusted her equipment and ran the analysis again. Sure, she was making some kind of mistake, but the results were the same. The computer is reading contentment, she announced to the stunned crew, and affection, and ... gratitude. As Miller's hand reached Titan's head, the massive predator did something even more impossible. Very carefully, moving like he was afraid of hurting the tiny human, Titan extended his head forward to meet Miller's touch. The human's small hand found a spot behind the creature's armored head ridge and began scratching gently. Titan's eyes half closed with what looked exactly like pleasure and comfort. The razor-sharp claws that could cut through steel slowly retracted into their protective sheaths. The deadly weapons disappeared completely, leaving only Pause. Captain. Thelanara's 4 eyes widened as she watched through the security cameras. Her voice came through the speakers, filled with amazement and confusion. This is impossible, she breathed. Razor-claw's stalkers don't show affection to anyone. They're mindless killing machines. They attack everything that moves. Miller looked up at the viewing window, where the alien crew was watching in shock. His tired face showed a gentle smile, the kind of expression someone might have when their friends finally understood something important. That's what everyone thinks, Miller said, still scratching behind Titan's massive head. But you're all completely wrong about them. Dr. Emily Watson couldn't sleep that night. The image of Titan gently nuzzling Dr. Miller's hand kept playing over and over in her mind. Everything she thought she knew about Razor-Claw stalkers had been turned upside down in just a few minutes. As the ship's expert on alien life forms, she felt like she had to understand what was really happening. At 3 in the morning, Watson made her way to Miller's quarters and knocked on his door. When he opened it, she could see he hadn't been sleeping either. His eyes were red from exhaustion, but they were also bright with excitement. I need to see your research files, Watson said directly. Everything you have about Razor-Claw stalkers. I have to understand how this is possible. Miller nodded and led her to his personal computer. I've been studying them for 8 years, he said, pulling up hundreds of files. Most people only see the attacks and the destruction. They never bother to look deeper. Watson sat down and began reading through Miller's research. With each file she opened, her understanding of these creatures completely changed. The first document showed detailed observations of Razor-Claw stalker families in the wild. Look at this, Miller said, pointing to a video recording. This was taken on the planet Zarian 7, before the mining companies arrived. The video showed something Watson had never seen before. A group of 6 adult Razor-Claw stalkers was working together to hunt a large prey animal. But they weren't just attacking randomly like wild beasts. They were using complex strategies, communicating with each other through subtle sounds and movements. They're coordinating their attack, Watson whispered in amazement. That requires advanced intelligence and teamwork. Miller nodded and opened another file. This one will really surprise you. The next video showed 2 adult Razor-Claw stalkers teaching their young cubs how to hunt. The parents demonstrated different techniques, then watched patiently as their children tried to copy them. When the cubs made mistakes, the adults would gently correct them and show the proper method again. They have complex family structures, Miller explained. Parents spend 2 full years teaching their children everything they need to know. They pass down knowledge from generation to generation. Watson continued reading through the files, her excitement growing with each new discovery. She found recordings of Razor-Claw stalkers playing together, sharing food with injured pack members, and even what appeared to be elaborate funeral ceremonies for their dead. This changes everything, she said, looking up at Miller. These aren't mindless monsters at all. They're highly intelligent, emotionally complex pack animals. The next morning, Watson called an emergency meeting with the entire crew. She projected Miller's research files onto the main viewing screen, showing everyone what she had learned during the night. "Everything we thought we knew about Razorclaw stalkers is wrong," she announced to the stunned alien crew members. "They're not solitary predators who kill for fun. They're family-oriented creatures with complex social structures." Captain Thelanara leaned forward in her chair, studying the images on the screen. "But what about all the attacks? The destroyed colonies? The thousands of deaths?" Miller stepped forward to answer. "Those attacks only started 20 years ago, when illegal poaching operations began hunting Razorclaw cubs. The adult creatures became violent because humans and other species were killing their children." He pulled up a star map showing the locations of all recorded Razorclaw attacks. Every single attack happened near areas where poaching activities had been reported. They weren't randomly violent. They were defending their families. Miller's voice became sad as he continued his explanation. "Titan here lost his entire pack to poachers 2 years ago. He watched his mate and 3 cubs get killed by hunters who wanted to sell their armored hides and claws. The crew turned to look through the medical bay window, where Titan was following Miller around like an enormous, deadly pet. The massive creature carried medical instruments carefully in his jaws, responding instantly to Miller's simple commands. He's been alone ever since," Miller said, gently stroking Titan's armored flank. "Razorclaw stalkers aren't meant to live by themselves." Without his pack, Titan was slowly dying of grief and loneliness. "The infected wounds I found him with were actually self-inflicted. He had given up on life." Watson watched in amazement as Titan carefully placed a medical scanner in Miller's outstretched hand. The creature's movements were precise and gentle, showing incredible intelligence and emotional understanding. "Humans have been doing this for thousands of years," Miller explained to the fascinated alien crew. "We took wolves and turned them into loyal dogs. We befriended wild tigers and made companions of dangerous bears. We have a special gift for seeing past the teeth and claws to find the intelligence and emotions underneath." Miller looked around at the crew members, all of whom were staring at Titan with new understanding. Every species in the galaxy sees Razorclaw stalkers as monsters to be feared and killed. But I saw a lonely, broken creature who just needed someone to care about him. Captain Thelanara shook her foreheads in wonder. "Dr. Miller, your species never stops amazing us. You found friendship in the most unlikely place imaginable." Through the viewing window, they could see Titan gently nuzzling Miller's shoulder. His deadly claws completely retracted, and his yellow eyes filled with gratitude and affection. The attack came from nowhere, hitting the diplomatic vessel like a bolt of lightning in clear space. Captain Thelanara was reviewing Miller's research files on the bridge when her tactical officer suddenly screamed a warning. "Pirate ships off our starboard side. Multiple vessels. They're launching boarding pods." The ship shuddered violently as heavy metal pods slammed into the hull like massive bullets. Each impact sent vibrations through the entire vessel, rattling equipment and throwing crew members off their feet. Warning sirens began blaring throughout every corridor. "All security teams to battle stations," Captain Thelanara shouted into her communication device. "Repel boarders. Protect the civilian areas." But the pirates had planned this attack perfectly. They had been watching the diplomatic vessel for days, studying its patrol routes and security weaknesses. Within minutes, armed raiders were pouring through breach points in the hull, their weapons already firing at anything that moved. Security Chief Grondar led his team into the first wave of combat, but the pirates had superior numbers and better weapons. Plasma fire lit up the corridors as both sides exchanged shots. The smell of burned metal and ozone filled the air. Dr. Jake Miller was in the medical bay with Titan when the attack began. The massive Razorclaw stalker had been helping him organize medical supplies, carefully carrying boxes and equipment with his powerful jaws. It had become their daily routine over the past week. When the first alarm sounded, Titan's enormous head snapped up instantly. His yellow eyes became alert and focused and his body tensed like a coiled spring. The creature could sense that something was very wrong. Miller placed a calming hand on Titan's armored head. "Easy, boy," he said in his usual gentle voice. "It's probably just a drill, or a minor technical problem. Stay here where it's safe." But Titan's enhanced senses were picking up things that Miller couldn't detect. The Razorclaw stalker could smell the fear and adrenaline of the crew members. He could hear the distant sounds of weapons fire and shouting. Most importantly, he could sense that his human companion was in danger. The medical bay doors suddenly burst open, and 3 heavily armed pirates rushed inside. Their faces were covered with breathing masks, and their armor was scarred from countless battles. They carried advanced plasma rifles that could cut through almost any material. Well, said the lead pirate, his voice distorted by his mask. "Look what we have here. A human doctor and his collection of medical supplies. This stuff will bring a good price on the black market." Miller stepped protectively in front of Titan, spreading his arms wide. "Please, just take whatever you want, and leave. Don't hurt anyone unnecessarily." The pirate leader laughed and raised his weapon. "Sorry, Doctor, no witnesses allowed. It's nothing personal, just business." The plasma blast caught Miller in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending him crashing into a medical cabinet. He cried out in pain as the energy beam burned through his shirt and left a smoking wound on his arm. That cry of pain changed everything. Titan's eyes blazed with a fury that seemed to come from the depths of his soul. The protective instincts that had been bred into his species over millions of years suddenly exploded into action. His human family member was hurt, and someone was going to pay for it. The containment field that had surrounded Titan's area shattered, like glass under his razor-sharp claws. Sparks flew as the energy barrier overloaded and collapsed completely. What happened next was like watching a natural disaster in motion. Titan moved through the corridors of the ship like liquid death, flowing around corners and through doorways with impossible grace for such a large creature. His roars echoed through the metal halls, a sound so terrifying that it made hardened pirates freeze in absolute terror. But this wasn't mindless violence. This was surgical precision guided by intelligence and love. Titan systematically hunted down every single pirate on the ship. His enhanced senses could track them through walls and around corners. When he found them, he would disable them with carefully controlled strikes that left them unconscious but alive. The pirates had never faced anything like this before. Their advanced weapons and armor meant nothing against a creature that could move faster than they could aim and think several steps ahead of their actions. Fall back, screamed the pirate commander through his radio. "Abandon the mission. Get to the escape pods now." Within 20 minutes, every pirate on the ship had either fled in terror or been knocked unconscious by Titan's precise attacks. The creature had moved through the vessel like an avenging angel, protecting every single crew member while eliminating the threat. When the last pirate ship limped away into hyperspace, the crew members cautiously emerged from their hiding spots. They found Dr. Miller sitting in a corridor, carefully bandaging his shoulder wound with medical supplies from his kit. Beside him sat Titan, no longer the terrifying predator of legend, but clearly a concerned guardian watching over his injured friend. The massive creature's head was tilted slightly, and his yellow eyes showed worry and affection. "Now you understand," Miller said, looking up at the amazed faces of the alien crew members. "Humans don't just make pets out of dangerous creatures. We make them into family members, and family always protects family." Captain Thelanara nodded slowly, her 4 eyes wide with newfound respect. "Dr. Miller, I believe we need to have a serious discussion about establishing a Razorclaw Stalker rehabilitation program, if there are others like Titan out there, suffering alone." Titan made his deep rumbling sound, but now it no longer seemed terrifying to anyone listening. Instead, it sounded oddly comforting as it vibrated gently through the ship's hull, like the purr of a giant, contented cat who had successfully protected his beloved family.